Welcome to Daily Tech Dose, your essential briefing on the evolving landscape of modern technology. Every day, we sift through the noise to bring you a curated digest of the latest in IT strategy, leadership, cybersecurity, data protection, and enterprise architecture, delivering the critical insights you need to stay ahead of the curve. Please take a moment to like this episode, subscribe to our video channel, and leave a comment below. Let's dive into today's briefing. Imagine a near future where you actually are legally required to copyright your own face just to protect it from enterprise AI scraping.
I mean, it sounds completely wild, right?
Right, it sounds like a dystopian sci-fi novel. But, as we'll see today, lawmakers are aggressively pushing for this right now. Today we're exploring a really fascinating digest of 10 insights curated by Canon Sabaya from June 28, 2026.
Yeah, there is a lot to unpack here.
Oh, a massive amount of ground to cover. We're going to take you from the high-level strategy of C-suites and human-centric AI laws all the way down to underwater data centers and the daily friction of just, writing code. So I want to start at the macro level. The mandate for business strategy right now is super clear. Simply buying an AI platform is no longer a differentiator at all.
Right, that era is just completely over. I mean, 2 years ago, having a foundational model inside your enterprise, that was a novelty.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Exactly. But today, if you're listening to this deep dive, you know that literally everyone in your sector has access to the exact same platforms. The competitive advantage has fundamentally shifted.
Shifted from just having the tech to how you actually restrain it.
Yes, structural restraint. The organizations that are winning are the ones laying out definitive 3 to 5 year roadmaps. They're asking how this technology will support complex human decision-making rather than just using it as a blunt instrument to, automate their entire workforce out of existence. What's fascinating here is that the rush to adopt AI has to be grounded in actual human reality.
And if you want a devastatingly expensive masterclass in why you shouldn't use AI as a blunt instrument, look at the reality check Ford just went through.
Oh, yeah. The Ford case is wild.
It really is. They tried to modernize their manufacturing by swapping out veteran engineers for AI models. The whole assumption was that advanced computing could just ingest the CAD files and the design requirements and optimize vehicle development entirely on its own.
Which naturally led directly to a cascade of quality control failures. I mean, industry-leading vehicle recall.
Right. Because they missed the human element.
Exactly. The mechanism of failure here is so important for anyone in enterprise architecture. AI is an incredibly powerful correlation engine, but it operates completely devoid of tacit knowledge.
Right, tacit knowledge. So the stuff that isn't neatly written down in a standard operating procedure.
Yes. When those veteran engineers walked out the door, all of their undocumented institutional knowledge just evaporated.
Like POF. Gone.
Exactly. An AI model trained on a factory's spec sheet, it doesn't know that machine number 4 runs a little hot on Tuesdays, or that a specific supplier's steel needs a slightly different tolerance than what the blueprint officially states. The models just lacked that hidden physical context.
So Ford had to execute this massive reversal. They ended up rehiring over 350 seasoned engineers to come back and fix the actual physical foundation.
Okay, let's unpack this. It's like trying to bake a master chef's signature cake using only the ingredient list without knowing the subtle techniques they use in the kitchen.
That's a great way to put it. Right. The recipe might say whip the eggs, but the chef knows exactly how the batter is supposed to feel. So doesn't this prove that AI is really just a mirror of what we explicitly feed it, rather than a true problem solver?
I completely agree. It is just a mirror. And Ford realized this the hard way. But they've now found a highly effective balance. The AI is no longer the final decision maker. It's a supportive scaling tool.
So they're still using it.
Oh, absolutely. They are running automated AI-driven testing, but it is directly orchestrated by veteran engineers who understand the physical nuances. The humans provide the technique, and the AI provides the scale.
So this brings up a massive operational question. If AI is only as good as the knowledge we feed it and the guardrails we put around it, how do we actually build systems that capture our daily context effectively? We had to look at the golden rule of building a powerful LLM knowledge base today, which is 100% automated collection.
Because if your system requires manual data entry, it is dead on arrival.
Exactly. Human beings are busy.
They really are. They're focused on their immediate tasks. If your developers have to manually tag coding snippets or, your project managers have to manually upload meeting notes into a vector database, it simply will not happen.
The context is just lost.
Completely lost. You have to establish pipelines that automatically ingest data from daily workflows. We're talking Slack channels, Jira tickets, Git commits.
But having a massive automated data lake isn't enough.
Right.
You can't just plug a raw foundation model into that data and expect it to run your company. This brings us to the actual architecture of an AI agent tech stack.
Right, to make that collected data actionable.
Exactly. And according to the article, it requires 7 distinct layers to make this functional in the real world. You have the foundation model, which is the brain. Then layer 2 is the orchestration framework, the nervous system. Layer 3 is memory. That's your working, episodic, semantic, and procedural memory. Then layer 4 is the vector database for retrieval. Layer 5 covers tool integrations. 6 is observability platforms. And 7 is the deployment infrastructure. But wait, I have to stop you at layer 3 and 4.
Okay, go ahead.
Why do we need a memory layer, A&D, the vector database? Aren't those basically the same thing?
It's a super common misconception, actually. But structurally, they serve entirely different mechanisms. The vector database layer 4, that's your company's semantic search. It's where you store millions of documents converted into numbers so the AI can retrieve facts.
Okay, so it's like a giant index.
Exactly. But layer 3, memory, is the agent's working context. It's episodic. It needs to remember that 5 minutes ago, you specifically asked it not to use a certain framework for a task. If it only had a vector database, it would treat every single prompt like a brand new day.
Here's where it gets really interesting for anyone trying to deploy this. Listening to those 7 layers, it directly mirrors a corporate hierarchy.
Oh yeah, it really does.
Right. The foundation model is your CEO. It has the big ideas, the raw intelligence.
Yeah.
But the orchestration layer, layer 2, that's your middle management, and layer 3, memory, is the filing cabinets. Without orchestration and memory, nothing actually gets done. So is the tech industry too obsessed with upgrading the brain or the CEO while completely ignoring the other 6 layers required to make it functional?
Yes, everyone is throwing money at foundation models with more and more parameters. But a brilliant CEO sitting in an empty room with no filing system, no tools, and no managers cannot run a business.
And just be talking to themselves.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, successful, scalable systems rely on a well-connected technology stack rather than just a single language model. The real magic happens in that orchestration layer. This is where the AI decides, okay, to answer this user's request, I first need to write a SQL query, then pass that data to a Python script and format it. That routing logic is far more critical right now than marginal gains in a foundation model's raw IQ.
Okay, so we build this perfect 7-layer stack. We have an autonomous agent that can reason, remember, and take action via APIs. But things get incredibly dangerous when those AI agents cross from the digital realm into the physical world, manipulating machinery and affecting human lives.
Yes, the risk profile changes exponentially.
Let's talk about the AI meets OT, or operational technology article, because integrating AI into manufacturing has massive physical consequences.
It's the difference between an advisory AI tool and one with direct control over machinery. If an AI hallucinates a weird phrase in a marketing email, you lose some face. If an AI hallucinates the pressure settings on an industrial boiler, you have a catastrophic physical event.
And the physical reality of a factory floor is messy. If you train an AI on perfect CAD models and historical data from when a machine was brand new, you run into huge problems because of aging equipment, right?
Right. A 10-year-old physical valve sticks. It has wear and tear. The AI model assumes it can turn that valve in 2 seconds, but in reality it takes 4. That timing mismatch alone can break an assembly line.
And then there's the cybersecurity angle.
Oh, absolutely. If a threat actor breaches the orchestration layer of an OT AI, they don't even have to break the machine directly. They just subtly manipulate the sensor data feeding the models.
And AI basically hacks the machine itself, trying to fix it.
Exactly. It will happily tear the machinery apart trying to correct a phantom problem. Which is why true human oversight means operators must know exactly when to override the AI. They need a physical, analog kill switch.
The moment you start talking about physical risks and catastrophic failures, you inevitably bring in the lawmakers. And the legislative pushback is already starting globally. I want to look specifically at the case being made for a human-centric AI legislative framework in India.
Yeah, this is a major shift.
The core argument is that legacy regulations, like India's Information Technology Act, are hopelessly failing to protect users from fraud and bias, and self-regulation just isn't working.
Legacy laws were built for static data. You know, who owns a photo, who sent a fraudulent email. They simply cannot process dynamic generative models.
So the global landscape is totally fracturing.
It is. You have the European Union implementing highly complex user-centric risk models, and then you have China instituting incredibly strict state-mandated algorithm rules. This Indian legislation is weighing the tension between innovation and safety.
And the specific solutions proposed in the Indian framework are fascinating. They're pushing for a risk-based grading system, an independent AI ombudsperson, and specifically giving citizens explicit copyright over their own physical faces and likenesses.
Yeah, that's the part that is really turning heads.
It's wild. So what does this all mean? We have to treat our physical likeness as intellectual property now. Will giving people copyright over their faces actually hold tech companies accountable, or just create a bureaucratic nightmare?
I mean, it is legally chaotic, but you have to understand the desperation driving it. Currently, most systems use right of publicity laws. That stops someone from using your face to sell a product.
Right, like a celebrity endorsement.
Exactly. But what happens when an AI scrapes your face, not to sell a product, but to train a model that generates a million synthetic faces that look slightly like you? Copyright law provides a much stronger statutory mechanism to sue for damages. They are basically trying to use intellectual property law to protect basic human identity because our privacy laws have completely failed to scale.
Speaking of things failing to scale, managing this level of physical risk and legal complexity is forcing a complete redesign of corporate leadership. Let's pivot to the CIO role, merging into the business article.
This is something every tech leader needs to pay attention to.
Definitely. The traditional CIO was basically a cost center manager, right?
Yeah.
They kept the servers cool, they managed the licenses, they made sure the Wi-Fi worked. But that progression is obsolete. The middle ground is completely collapsing.
It's collapsing because technology is no longer a support layer that sits beneath the business. It is the central decision-making system of the business itself. Tech leaders must become true enterprise operators responsible for revenue, or the title itself will just dissolve.
And this collapse isn't just happening in the C-suite. We're seeing extreme measures required to physically power this new era of infrastructure. Let's shift from the C-suite to the deep dive article. Do underwater data centers make sense?
Oh, this is such a fascinating engineering pivot.
It's crazy to think about. As these AI models demand more compute, the massive energy drain of traditional land-based cooling is just becoming unsustainable. So the solution is to take these massive server racks, seal them in steel cylinders, and sink them to the ocean floor.
The physics behind it actually solve a critical bottleneck. Water's thermal conductivity is exponentially higher than air, so the ocean acts as a massive natural heat sink.
So you're getting free cooling.
Exactly, which drastically slashes the power usage. And furthermore, over half the human population lives near a coast. By placing data centers offshore, you drastically reduce latency for loading times.
Okay, but what about reliability? Water and electronics don't usually mix.
That's the most surprising data point. These cylinders are filled with a sealed, dry nitrogen environment. Because there is no oxygen to cause corrosion and zero human foot traffic bumping into racks, the harbor reliability is actually incredibly high.
Okay, I understand the thermal physics, but I have to push back on this underwater model. To me, it sounds exactly like launching a satellite. Once it is down there, routine maintenance is virtually impossible.
That is the trade-off, yeah.
Right. You can't just send a junior systems admin down in a scuba suit to hot swap a broken server. Plus, you're continuously pumping massive amounts of heat into local marine ecosystems. And physical cable security is a huge risk. Are we just trading a real estate and energy crisis on land for an ecological and logistical crisis in the ocean?
This raises an important question about our priorities. You're trading maintenance accessibility for immediate thermal efficiency. It is a calculated gamble that the immediate efficiency gains outweigh these formidable long-term environmental and logistical challenges. They're betting the servers will outlive their economic usefulness before they need physical repairs.
We are fundamentally altering our physical world just to sustain our digital one. And beneath the corporate strategy and the underwater servers, we rely on the daily grind of developers who are just. They are begging for better tools to build this future safely.
Yes, down in the developer's trenches.
Exactly. Let's look at the article, 5 T SQL features that should already exist. Edward Pollack laid out his 2026 wish list, highlighting the daily friction database admins are dealing with.
It's a sobering reminder that while the C-suite talks about autonomous AI, the people building the pipelines are still fighting basic inefficiencies.
Right. One of his biggest requests is native import support from Parquet files. This would eliminate massive CSV headaches. He also wants native arrays and overlaps function for dates, transparent licensing that mirrors Azure, and better cloud blob storage integration.
And you can connect this desire for efficiency directly to the realities outlined in the article about the unglamorous side of Rust web development.
Oh, Rust. Everyone says Rust is the future.
They do, because Rust offers unmatched performance and memory safety. You get the speed without the catastrophic security vulnerabilities. But the friction is incredibly high in 2026.
Why is it so painful for developers right now?
Well, developers face a lack of complete frameworks, for one, but mostly it's the compile times due to complex type systems and the agony of asynchronous debugging. And of course, the borrow checker.
Ah, the infamous borrow checker.
Right. It mathematically forces you to prove that every piece of memory is perfectly tracked before your code will even compile.
It's like building a house out of solid granite. It's going to last forever and withstand a hurricane, but setting up the foundation is agonizingly slow. Are developers accepting too much daily misery and friction just for the promise of perfect long-term stability?
It's a constant negotiation. The tech world is always balancing initial developer effort against long-term reliability, but the community is actively working on new frameworks to reduce this friction. It proves that in both SQL and Rust, human engineers are still the ones doing the gritty problem solving.
It all connects back to the human element. We started this deep dive with Ford realizing that undocumented human knowledge was the missing ingredient for their AI. Then we discussed Indian legislation proposing we copyright our physical faces. It leaves you with a profound question to think about. If AI requires all our digitized data to function and we eventually copyright our faces and physical likenesses, will the most valuable corporate and personal asset of the future be the undocumented, undigitized human intuition that is deliberately kept off the cloud?
I mean, as computing becomes abundant, the things we cannot easily digitize will inherently become our greatest point of leverage.
Thank you for joining us for today's digest. Our goal is to equip you with the perspective necessary to lead with confidence. For a deeper dive, head to the text version of this digest, as mentioned in the show notes, which contains links to all sources. To help us grow this community of practice, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. By engaging with the video, you're helping other engineering and tech leaders discover this resource. We'll see you tomorrow. Keep building and stay secure.